What's up everybody on YouTube? AJ Russ back here with another video, and today we're going to be ranking the top 5 teams in the NFC for the 2024 season. When looking at the scope of the NFC, there's a lot of teams that will be in the mix. Obviously the 49ers made the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs again, but they still have the same team essentially returning, having Christian McCaffrey, having Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, defensively, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. I could really go on and on. Of course, Brandon Ayuk is a huge question right now, and he's currently having a hold-in, so we'll see what happens there, but that team is still a juggernaut. You have the Detroit Lions, who narrowly lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and they were winning in the first 3 quarters, so that's another team that's going to be a huge contender in the NFC. Also have the Eagles, who had a great start to the 2023 season and really collapsed at the end. They brought in new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio from the Miami Dolphins, and also offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who was last year offensive coordinator for the Chargers, but it's been a long time as offensive coordinator in Dallas, so that'll be a jolt for the Eagles for sure. We'll see if they're able to recreate that same success they had in 2022 when they made the Super Bowl. Bringing in also Saquon Barkley is a huge boost as well, and still having Jalen Hurts. That team certainly should be a contender, but we'll see what ensues there. The Green Bay Packers, they're also another team. Jordan Love had a great final 10 games in his first year as a full starter. Had a huge contract as well. We're gonna see if he's gonna be able to elevate the Packers even more. They got Josh Jacobs as well. Still have Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. Have a really young roster that's hungry, ready to make some noise. And then you look at other teams that are wild cards that could potentially make it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they won the NFC South last year. That division is still wide open in my eyes, even though the Falcons did bring in Kirk Cousins and added some improved roster moves. Also adding new head coach Raheem Morris. They should be better, but we'll see who wins the NFC South, because like I said, it is wide open. Even the Saints, they always have a dominant defense, but offensively they struggle a lot, and Derek Carr has his struggles. And really the NFC East is an intriguing one. I did mention the Eagles, but also the Cowboys. They were very inept in the offseason in terms of making moves. What are they gonna do? Dak is on his last year of his contract right now. He hasn't gotten an extension. CeeDee Lamb still hasn't came to camp yet. It's a huge question mark. I do believe that they'll end up paying him though, because I mean, come on, you have to. CeeDee's one of the top 3 to 5 receivers in the league right now, but there's a lot of question marks there, guys. But yeah, before I rank the top 5 teams in the NFC, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. You know we post about here videos about sports, lifestyle, pop culture, NBA, NFL, Marvel, DC, all things like that. So with that being said, let's rank these top 5 teams in the NFC. So coming in at number 5, yes, I do have the Dallas Cowboys, and I have a lot to say about this, but in a nutshell, they still have Dak Prescott, and I know that he hasn't performed well in the playoffs. A 2-5 record, hasn't showed up where it matters most, but he is a very consistent quarterback in terms of the regular season. And this team, they are built well. If this was ranking the teams in terms of who I think are real legit contenders and playoff contenders, Dallas would be at the near lowest of the list, but they are a really good team still. I know they lost some players that have less to the Commanders, losing Tyler Biadasz, losing Tyron Smith on the offensive line, but they also added pieces like Tyler Guyton, Cooper Beebe, and the Cowboys always draft well in terms of really their talent overall, but especially the offensive line, so I'm really bullish on that. They haven't re-signed Stephon Gilmore, and it looks like they won't. Bringing in new defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer, I do believe that this defense will be really good still. Having Deron Bland, who had an amazing season last year, Trayvon Diggs returning from ACL surgery, and a player that I really think is going to make a huge impact defensively at the linebacker position, Demarion Overshown. He's going to be nice. He missed the 2023 season because he tore his ACL in the preseason, but hey, watch out for him. Eric Kendricks, veteran who has played in Mike Zimmer's system before, he should be a great piece. But also it does suck because you just lost Sam Williams last week to an ACL injury, so it really just seems like the Cowboys, they always have to deal with some type of adversity, whether it's Jerry Jones being so unconventional that it hurts the roster, or just injuries and things of that nature piling up. But you still have DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players, that goes without saying. And offensively, like I said, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, whenever you get that contract, you'll have him back because you have to get it done. You don't just have wide receivers like that, a top 3 to 5 talent, walking around every day. When you have the market right there, that Justin Jefferson just got a contract. Also, Tyreek Hill just got a contract extension. People like Amon-Ra St. Brown got a contract extension. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. So CeeDee Lamb is looking like, where's my bag, Jerry? And they're going to give it to him eventually. Just like I said, Jerry's unconventional. He wants to do it his way. But the Cowboys, I still do believe that they're a top 5 team. Now, do I think that they'll make noise in the playoffs? Not really, because we haven't seen anything, at least in my lifetime, to say that we'll see that. Born in 02, they haven't won since the 95-96 season. So you always just expect that inevitable turn to where they collapse in the playoffs. But the Cowboys, I do believe that they are still a talented roster. They should still cook in terms of the regular season. They play in the NFC East. They do have a solid schedule, I would say, because they do play teams like in the AFC North this year. I know they're playing against the Ravens, the Bengals, and teams of that nature, so that's going to be some challenging games. But I still do believe that they're a top 5 team. Dan Orlovsky saying that the Cowboys are the 8th best team in the NFC. That's wild to me, I'm not going to lie.
I have them 8th. and out of the playoffs. I think San Francisco's better. I think Philly's better. I think Detroit is better. I think Green Bay is better. I think the Rams are better. I think Seattle's better. And I think someone from the South is obviously going to get better. And I think you could put the conversation that two teams from the South are going to be just as good, if not better.
Like, yeah, but he has said stuff about Dak Prescott and the Cowboys over the years, so I'm not surprised about that. But I don't think that they'll do anything significant in the playoffs, but they still are a top 5 level team, in my opinion, in the NFC. At number 4, we have the team that knocked out the Cowboys in the playoffs, and that's the Green Bay Packers. We saw what they did as a 7th seed last year, and improving on that team, adding in a player like a Josh Jacobs and still having A.J. Dillon, that's really going to help the Green Bay Packers do some special things this year. Jordan Love, he was able to display his talented ability to make throws under duress, under pressure, being able to create out the pocket. It seems like he took a lot out of Aaron Rodgers' bag in his 3 seasons sitting behind him and really soaked in knowledge and was able to implement what he learned to the field. He did have a rough start, and the Packers did have a rough start, but they ended up finishing 7-3 in their last 10 games, had a strong start to make the playoffs, make the 7th seed as a wild card, and like I said, they took off against the Cowboys. Jordan Love, he had a passer rating of 157.2. He had 272 passing yards, had 3 touchdowns, and the team in the Cowboys that many people proclaimed as unbeatable at home, they went into Dallas's crib and took their lunch money, took their food, their dinner, everything. And even in that game against San Francisco, the Packers, they really, you can make the case, should have won that game. If not for those 2 interceptions, and particularly that last interception that Jordan Love threw, that was just like YOLO, what was that? But besides that, the Packers, they were playing really good. They kept the 49ers defense at bay, kept their defense honest, and they put a great game plan and a great game together. So you can make the case that the Packers really, you could say that they're a top 3 team in the NFC right now. Some people have picked them to potentially make the Super Bowl in 2024. I'm not saying that yet, even though it definitely is possible. But I just want to see more out of Jordan Love in this young group. I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a huge game changer in terms of adding him into the running game. And like I said, A.J. Dillon is still a solid running back. I know that they lost Aaron Jones, but I'm sure they're not losing sleep at night because they have Josh Jacobs. So that offense, I do believe they're going to be cooking. I think that team is going to be cooking in defense. They also still have Jair Alexander, who's easily one of the best defensive players and defensive backs in the league. Pieces like Quay Walker, who I was really pleased with at the end of the season. They also acquired Xavier McKinney, safety from the New York Giants, and he's going to be able to add some more defensive versatility to the Green Bay Packers as well. And they also brought in a new defensive coordinator, so I do believe that the Packers, they can make some real noise. I expect them at minimum to make the divisional round, especially because of how they finished off last season when no one expected them to do really anything. This team, they definitely have some promise and potential, and that's why they come in at number 4 out of the top 5 NFC teams for 2024. At number 3, I have to say it's the Philadelphia Eagles, and there's many reasons to say that. A lot of people have the conspiracy of the Dallas Cowboys and the NFC East in general not having a repeat divisional champion in 20 years. I guess you could kind of say some of that, but honestly, I do believe that the Eagles, they'll correct their wrongs from last season. I know that Jason Kelce retired. I know that Fletcher Cox also retired, but they still have a really good team. I mean, bringing in Saquon Barkley, that's huge. That ups their chance to get another Super Bowl. That ups their Super Bowl chances for sure. Being at their divisional rival and then coming over to your squad, I mean, that's huge if you're an Eagles fan because he's one of the top 3 to 5 running backs still. I know the Giants were trying to pay him like that, but honestly, that's a blessing for Saquon to get out of there because the Giants, they're a dumpster fire right now. Their defense is solid. They brought in Brian Burns. I will give credit there, but what are we really doing? They were really doomed when they gave Daniel Jones that 4-year, $140 million contract. But anyways, on that, the Eagles though, like I said earlier in the intro, bringing in Vic Fangio, he's really going to help that defense be great and not have the type of errors that they did last year with those different assistant coaches that they had. Vic Fangio last year in Miami, their defense ranked 5th in the NFL, and the Eagles, they have a lot of weapons, not only in their front 7, but also their linebackers, and they added some reinforcements to their secondary. They brought back T.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was there previously in last year's with the Detroit Lions. They also drafted Quinyon Mitchell in the 1st round and then Cooper DeJean in the 2nd round. So their secondary, while them 2 players being young, they're going to be improved regardless and for the future with those 2 pieces. And then you still have defensively players like Jalen Carter, who is a huge part of their future and had a really strong rookie season. Jordan Davis as well, who played in college with Jalen Carter. And linebackers wise, you still have Nakobe Dean. You brought in Devin White from Tampa Bay. I think that's really huge and an underrated signing. That's going to go a long way for them to help stop the runs. They still have Darius Slay, who's one of the better cornerbacks in the league. He's getting older, but he still has a high impact, and he's one of the leaders on that roster, so the Eagles still have him. So the Eagles, defensively, they have a lot, but even offensively, I talked a little bit about Saquon Barkley, and of course you have Jalen Hurts, who I'll shed light on even more a little bit later. But you have Devontae Smith. You have A.J. Brown, who's one of the best receivers in the league. Dallas Goedert at the tight end position. I mean, they have a lot of weapons. Really, it just comes down to execution. Jalen Hurts, he showed in 2022 and in the Super Bowl how great of a quarterback he can be as a dual-threat quarterback. It just comes down to execution. A lot of people underrate the impact that coaching makes, particularly as an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. We saw teams like the Dallas Cowboys in 2020. They were one of the worst teams defensively. In 2021, they brought in Dan Quinn, one of the best defensive teams, drafted Micah Parsons, things of that nature. Offensively, for the Eagles, in 2022, they made the Super Bowl. They had Shane Steichen, who ended up becoming the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and they almost made the playoffs. Saw how great of a coordinator he was in 2022, and then you saw without him in 2023, the Eagles, tanked offensively and defensively, as they also lost Jonathan Gannon, who was their defensive coordinator in 2022, who ended up being the Arizona Cardinals head coach in 2023. So coaching really makes a huge difference. A lot of quarterbacks can overcome that. Jalen Hurts, he didn't have the greatest season in 2023, but make no mistake, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I believe top 10 to 12 talent for sure. It just really comes down to execution with the Eagles, because they honestly really should be on the 49ers level, especially this season. They're going to want to get their get back because of how they were dominated at home last year in the regular season, but also the 49ers, they still had vengeance from that playoff game in the 2022-23 season when Brock Purdy got hurt and napped at the quarterback position. So the Eagles, I have them at number 3 at this list, but they easily could be 1 or 2. It just really comes down to them putting it all together. Top two. Really, it's kind of evident who I'm going to have here. I talked about them a little bit earlier. The Detroit Lions. And they're only really number 2 right here because of how the season in the playoffs finished. If they would have made the Super Bowl, I mean, maybe they would have been number 1. And honestly, I can't just say that because the 49ers, we know how dominant Christian McCaffrey is. Offensive player of the year last year. Really the whole roster that they have, and we'll talk about that in a second because obviously they're number 1. But number 2 with the Lions, building a culture and an identity under Dan Campbell. Jared Goff got a new extension, like I said earlier. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Penei Sewell as well got one. That team is back. Jahmyr Gibbs, he had a great rookie season. He's going to only continue to improve. Him and Montgomery being a great running back duo, that's going to go wonders for them. And defensively, they were able to improve as well in free agency and in the draft. In the first round, they drafted Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. I believe that he'll be able to help them for sure defensively. Like I said earlier, they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who returned to Philadelphia, but he'll be able to, of course, probably have some rookie pains, but if it all goes right with them in their defensive scheme, he should be able to make a solid impact for that defense as well. They also signed in free agency Amik Robertson at the cornerback position, so he'll be able to add some more help and versatility at the DB position. Defensive tackle DJ Reader also signed with the Lions. They also signed Marcus Davenport, who's a defensive end. So pieces like that just to improve and help their defense will go a long way, because there was no question. Everyone knew when playing against the Lions that their secondary was kind of weak, so they attacked their secondary all the time. Saw that kind of throughout the year, especially when they played teams like the Ravens when they got blew out. So they were able to add reinforcements there. I really do believe that the Lions, though, they have this Super Bowl window for sure, and they're going to be making the most of it. They do have the Green Bay Packers in their own division, who I mentioned also on this list. So there's going to be some competition. You can make a case that the Vikings are going to continue to improve. They still have, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson. It just comes down to seeing potentially how J.J. McCarthy will be, because if you don't have a quarterback, you're kind of cooked in the NFL. Actually, not kind of, you are. And you have Chicago in that division, who they're really talented too. I don't think they're a top 5 team in the NFC, but I certainly think that they'll be a wild card this year. The situation that Caleb Williams has stepped in is honestly the best that a rookie quarterback has ever stepped into. So they're going to be a potential threat, the future in the NFC North. But the Lions, I do believe that they're the head of the snake in that division, but they're the 2nd overall in the NFC. But they do have a lot of potential. I mean, if you watch Netflix receivers and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, that team, they're great, and he's one of the best receivers in the league as well. So I do believe that the Lions, they're number 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made the Super Bowl. And if one of these few years, this year, next year, 2026, if they were to win the Super Bowl, that wouldn't be shocking. And number 1, of course, we have the San Francisco 49ers. Now, there's a lot that goes into this pick, because really this year, the 49ers, they should be all in. They really should have won the Super Bowl last year, as a lot of people would say, but Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he's being on his road to being one of the greatest, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. But 49ers, they still have a window, but this might be the year that this is it for this roster currently constructed. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy after this year. It'll be after his 3rd year, he'll be eligible for that extension, and a lot of people are going to want their bread. They're going to want their payday. They were able to sign Nick Bosa to an extension last season. That was great. But also, you're going to have to address Brandon Ayuk right now. That's a huge dispute going on. He wants a trade, holding in right now. You can make the case that they'll make something work and make something happen, but these situations never go great, honestly. He could end up playing still, but next year, what does that mean? Deebo Samuel, he could potentially want an extension next year too, so that's another thing on the table as well. But those are 2 year receivers. They drafted Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. He looks nice, really talented in the first round. I think he'll be a huge difference maker in this offense as well, being implemented. And you still have George Kittle, who in my opinion is the 2nd best tight end in the league after Travis Kelce, but for sure the best blocking tight end in the league. I think that goes without saying. And CMC, Offensive Player of the Year, Christian McCaffrey, Madden cover. You make the case that he's the best player in the league, period, regardless of position. So this team, they have no excuses not to at least win one with this roster. I mean, the past few years, they've been knocking on the door. They made the Super Bowl last year. They lost in the conference championship. I don't think really anyone is blaming them for losing the conference championship against the Eagles a couple years ago, because we saw that Brock Purdy got hurt and really didn't have any quarterback depth. In 2021-22, you can make the case that they should have made it and potentially could have challenged or beat Cincinnati that year. And of course, that's when they had Jimmy Garoppolo starting and a lot of stuff there. So that's a different team overall. But what are you going to do? Defensively, you have Bosa, you have Fred Warner, you have Hufanga returning. I know that you lost Drake Greenlaw, which is going to be huge. He tore his Achilles. He's pretty much going to be out for this 2024 season, which sucks. But no one's going to feel bad for y'all 49ers if y'all don't end up winning under Kyle Shanahan, because this team, they have enough. I know injuries happen in the league, and they did get to the Super Bowl last year, and they got there in the 2019-20 season as well, losing both times to Mahomes. But what are you going to do? Are you going to be able to perform? Because I know a lot of people make fun of the Dallas Cowboys. They haven't won a Super Bowl since 1995, I believe, but we get lost in the 49ers. They make so many appearances into the Super Bowl and deep playoff runs, which is key and which is definitely important. But we've seen the Cowboys win a Super Bowl more recently than the 49ers, which is crazy to say, but that's true. So are they going to be able to capture their 6th this year, or are they going to have to retool next year and potentially try to climb back due to the limitations of the salary cap? I don't know, but this team is certainly good enough. Brock Purdy, he's continuing to defy all the odds, being Mr. Irrelevant, to being a top 10 level quarterback in this league. And there's a lot of top 10 level quarterbacks, but what are you going to do when things are out of structure? I mean, he played really good in the Super Bowl, don't get me wrong. When I'm saying that, what are you going to do when things are out of structure, I mean, when they give you that bad next year, are you going to be able to perform to the money and the salary that they give you? We'll see what happens. The 49ers, though, they definitely have enough, guys. And Christian McCaffrey, he's not only a running back, he's dynamic out of the backfield, which makes him a great receiver position too. So we can expect a few more years of his prime and dominance as well too. But time is certainly on the clock, guys. But the 49ers, I do still believe that they are the best team in the NFC and one of the best overall in the NFL. And if they don't get it done this year, I mean, I'm trying to question and see when they will, because they've been knocking at the door, like I said. So yeah, guys, those are my top 5 teams in the NFC, going from 1 to 5. The San Francisco 49ers, the Detroit Lions, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers, and the Dallas Cowboys. Let me know what you think about the list. Is it accurate? Do you not agree? Is your team not on the list, and are you mad at me about that? If so, I could be wrong, guys. I mean, this is totally subjective, but I believe going into the season, at least, this is the most accurate list. Now, teams, like I said earlier, like the Rams, they could end up surprising a lot. I mean, like I said, you never know with injuries. I mean, they could end up winning the NFC West. The Dallas Cowboys, they could end up being trash, or they could end up surprising everybody with no expectations because of the lack of movement that they made this year. So it just really goes to ebb and flow type of thing. The Chicago Bears, like I talked about, they could elevate. A lot of teams could elevate, but right now I do believe that those 5 teams that I listed and ranked are overall the best 5 in the NFC going into this season. But with that being said, guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Always make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Swaggy Russ, and also on TikTok at Swaggy Russ 2 for cooking videos, sports, reels, things of that nature. More videos are on the way. Stay tuned for when I rank the top 5 AFC teams as well, because I can't just do the NFC and not do the AFC and then potentially do the NFL overall. I mean, gotta make these lists going together and making sense. So for sure gonna do that, guys. But I thank you for your support and blessings always. Sometimes I make different videos, like I said, about like a Marvel video or about NFL, NBA, but y'all always continue to come back, so I really appreciate it. God loves you. You have purpose. Jesus loves you. I thank you for everything that y'all do always. Hope your summer has went well. For y'all people who are going back to school, know that you were there for a reason and it's not a waste of time. I know that school can suck. I just graduated though, thank God. I don't have to deal with it no more. But you're there for a reason, to get your education and to get to where God and where He wants you to go on His plan. So it's all for a reason, all for a purpose. Same thing with your job, guys. Hope y'all are doing well, doing something that you love. Y'all be blessed. Y'all have a good one, and stay tuned for more.